You've read the title, so you know what this video is about. It's a question that has plagued the BBC for the better part of a decade. And it all began the better part of a decade ago. Almost 10 years in the past. On a magical Christmas Eve, close to a decade ago, back in 2012, families sat together to enjoy a televisual adaptation of David Walliams' best-selling children's novel, in numbers said to be in the region of loads. Little did we know, we'd never see it again. This is the story of how the BBC lost Mr. Stink, and how the BBC lost it. Mr. Stink was a major production starring a number of big-name actors, and a number of big-name actors. It quickly became a major part of British culture, enriching the lives of all who remember it. So how did it become lost? And what did it become lost? In the 70s, financial pressures forced a clear out of the BBC vaults, in a practice known in professional broadcasting circles as having a clear out and whacking stuff in the bin, among many other classic shows including early episodes of The Two Morecambs and all 3.9 billion episodes of gritty police drama Plod. Mr. Stink became unfound. But could this story really account for the destruction of every known copy? Only 3 16mm prints of Stink were made, one sent to Wales, one to Australia, and one was requested by the BBC's only robot employee at the time, so he could muck about with it. The Sprockets copy is known to have been destroyed when he malfunctioned and accidentally dropped the film into the Hadron Collider. There are of course still hopes that this copy materialised in an alternate universe, and that they might lob it back to us in time to come. Wales returned their copy in 1975, which should have been logged by the BBC archivist Gordon Morden. At the time, Morden had recently been mistaken for a damp jumper and hung out on a buxom housewife's washing line to dry, a common occurrence in those days. The trauma from this ordeal caused him to make brain mistakes in his work, leaving the return of the Welsh Mr. Stink print undocumented. The Australian copy was supposedly returned, but Australians are well known as natural-born liars, so this probably isn't the case. If it was returned to the BBC, it would have been lobbed out.
It's just material that was deemed non-marketable, was worthless and just thrown away into a skip and then incinerated, or videotape was wiped. I think it's disgusting personally.
That's just the way things were done in those days, I'm afraid. It's gone. I mean, Mr. Stink fans are obsessive, and there is a refusal to believe that the print is gone and it's not turning up.
This has become the BBC's official narrative, and the end of the story for the missing BBC show that nobody talks about. Right? What still exists of Mr. Stink? To answer that question, we need to go back to 1984. But if we're going to get any answers, join me as we head to present day. Then to present day. Then back to 2012. Let's talk fan recordings. This 8mm recording was made by an unnamed Australian fan named Greg Dyson. It's some of the only known footage to exist. In 2012, home recording was not yet commonplace, with these rudimentary fan-made telesnaps being one of the best visual records of Mr. Stink to have survived.
It was unusual, something new.
Why did you want to have a recording of your own?
Purely from my own personal preference of listening to it later.
And did you listen back to them?
It's very difficult. As time goes on, you cannot visualise the pictures you've seen. You only have the audio. But in the early days, yes, I could sort of close my eyes and visualise the picture and listen to the story.
Barry Tango is the man behind the Stinky tapes. As a self-confessed sado, he took it upon himself to record the audio from the original broadcast.
We had a 17-inch box TV at the time, and I remember hanging the microphone over in front of the speaker with a flower pot or something on the top to keep the wire in place.
Unfortunately, the final few minutes of the Barry Tango tapes are missing, and it's only fair that I detail this. He became engaged in a shitting session he literally couldn't walk away from. The existence of these tapes led to the BBC officially releasing the Mr. Stink re-novelisation in very, very early 2020. Stink was one of the first major productions to be included in the New Ways to Watch BBC initiative, being recorded in full 5.1 smell-o-vision. Scratch and sniff cars were hand-delivered by hand the night before the premiere of Stink to test groups in the Norfolk, Suffolk and Norfolk regions of the UK, a forgotten relic of the Beebs' attempt to stretch the viewing experience. In 1999, it emerged that the original odor reel was retained by smell-o-vision technician Simon Byfield, who was unaware of its missing status until Dean Carr, a full-time finderer of Mr. Stink material, finded it within Byfield's personal collection. Although some of the smell had degraded over time, enough scent information remained to allow for restoration. After its discovery, it was returned to the BBC in 1992, and a copy was retained in the BBC archives.
Well, at the time, recording extra pongs and whiffs for most BBC drama productions was seen as an unnecessary expense. But with Mr. Stink being a rare exception, it's actually a miracle that we still have the odour track to enjoy to this day.
The odour discovery renewed hopes that the visuals are out there, yet to be found. But what are the chances that a full copy may still be recovered? Today, a new social campaign known as #GetStinky has completely dominated parts of a small part of Western East Anglia. In part, #GetStinky has raised well over £700, raking exactly 1 million of its fundraiser goal to launch a satellite so far into space that it picks up the original 2012 transmission on broadcast. With 4 days left in its funding campaign, donations have stalled, considering the launch costs precisely £1 million and 1 pence. it now looks like the total will fall short, and with it, the stink seems to be fading on this dream. Stinkheads, however, will never give up. This was proved by a planned storming of the BBC archives to check the Mr. Stink missing status in person, although fans went as far as hiring a few beefy boys with low IQs to duff up anyone who stood in their way. The plan fell apart when it became apparent that none of them had BBC passes. But what if they did have a pass? The world of Mr. Stink fandom is rife with fervent rumour. One of the most popular concerns the accusations that British comedy act Vic and Bob's entire career has been a front to gain BBC passes in order to steal archive material. Could the master tape from Mr. Stink be among the Vic and Bob haul? Although there is overwhelming evidence to suggest the comedy act are criminals, it's thought that they concentrate mostly on the theft of livestock, making the claims the film was ever in their possession highly dubious. Sadly, it is unlikely that Mr. Stink will ever be seen again. Although a copy surfacing on the iPlayer recently, completely free to watch, has renewed hopes. This full HD copy is, unfortunately, the only surviving footage we are likely to ever see. But there is another angle on this theory, which is quite intriguing. Some have suggested it's total bullshit. Thank you for watching, and I would like to take this moment to thank my Patreons for making this video possible. Noel Clark, thank you to each and every one of you for making this video possible. You really made the possibility of this video a possible possibility, so thank you. Next time we discuss the mystery of the missing Mystery Beatles album that they mysteriously never recorded or wrote. What didn't it sound like? Why wasn't it released? And most crucially, where did these mysterious Beatles mysteriously vanish to shortly after mysteriously not recording it? And why? And what?